Welcome back, everybody. It's time again for another update on the Silver Age sales prices. So I've been alternating doing Bronze Age one month and Silver Age the next month. So the last time we did this was after the month of January. So we've got February and March data to look at. Have prices started going up? Because for the most part, they've been continuing to decline, albeit much slower than in previous months and previous years. So is it still dropping, but just the drop is continuing to slow down, or are we actually going up? Let's find out. Before we get into the first book, just a reminder, I use all GPA data and it's all blue universal sales data. So no purple restored labels, no green qualified label data, all blue, all GPA. And it includes sales all the way back from the beginning of 2020 through the latest completed month, which was March of this year. Grades included, I include all data that has sales of grades at least once in 2020, and it's got to have a sale in the past 2 months, so either March or February of this year, right? And I do that to keep the data as current as possible. That's the best way to show an appropriate trend, right? A trend that is realistic in real time, all right? So here we go. SpiderMan number 1. This is going to be our first book of the 6 we're going to look at. So I'm not going through the entire history. We know, right? I'm not going to repeat this on each book. We know it skyrocketed through COVID. Correction has been going on for like a year and a half, maybe close to 2 years now. When we left off in January, the average sale price was $11,680. Again, of the grades that are included here, right? And I'll show you those grades and those individual changes at the end of each book. So that was January. What happened in February and March? Okay, well, February came and went, and this book went up a little bit, as you can see. And then March went up a little bit more. So we've got a little bit of a trend going on, ASM number 1. So the average price increased just a little bit up to $11,910. So a slight 2% increase. Nonetheless, the past couple months, it's going the right direction. If you want this book to go up, that's the right direction for you. If you're looking for it to keep correcting because you want it to be more affordable, I get that too. But right now, this is the data, and ASM1 is on a little bit of an uptick. And then overall, I like to do this, right? Going back all the way to 2020, this book is up 17%. So that's not a lot. In over 4 years, for the book to only increase 17%, that's not much. You'll see these other books have much higher percentages, but it's a little bit misleading because when you go all the way back to 2020, the beginning, right, a $10,000 book, it dropped instantly down to an $8,000 book, right, and then rose from there. So if we were to start, make our starting point 2 months later, this book would be more like a 30% increase over 4 years. But again, the data is what it is. Here are the grades that sold over the past couple months and how they changed. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 grades had sales, and it was pretty much split. 4 of them had increases, 3 of them had decreases, and the 4.0 didn't change at all. So I think that kind of aligns with our 2% increase since January. All right. So that is ASM number 1. Let's move on. Hulk number 1. This is the rarest of all the Silver Age Marvel grails. Okay, so we're not going to have as much data on this one, and I think probably Fantastic Four number 1's the other one, right? Just not a lot of sales, so keep that in mind. When we left off in January, this book had 3 months of increasing prices. It left off at just under $16,500. What happened in February? Here we go. February, it went up again, and then March, big drop. All right, lowest data point since 2021. So it dropped down to $15,400, 7% drop over those 2 months, but still up 68% overall. And then the grades, like I said, right, there were only, I don't know if I said 3 or 4, but there were 4 grades that sold here. 3 of them had increases, but the one that really swings the average is that 4.5 sale, right? Dropping by 21%. So that, again, right, when you don't have a lot of sales, the data is a little bit volatile. But again, right, I am showing the actual data, and it is what it is. So I would expect the Hulk to normalize a little bit more over the next few months here. All right, here we go. Next book, X-Men #1. This book has had a bigger correction than most. Okay, and when we left off in January, it was kind of up and down. What happened in February? Here we go. Up again, so we're seeing this zigzag pattern. And then February, down, but not as far down as the increase the previous month. So overall, it's up by 3%. It rose by about $200. All right, so 3% increase. And you look at X-Men now, has it hit its bottom? That's a question we ask ourselves on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. You know, which books have hit their bottom? You can argue for the past 4 or 5 months that X-Men had hit its bottom because it's just kind of staying flat, a little bit up, a little bit down. All right, overall, still up 55%. And then here are the grades, right? We had 6 grades that had sales over the past couple months since our last update. 4 of them had increases, 2 of them had decreases, and I think when you look at the percentages, right, the greens are, especially the 2.0 and 2.5, right, they're fairly high, being 21% and 23%. But because they're lower price books, it's almost canceled out by, you know, the big 4.5 decrease at 16%. So you got to keep that in mind as well. All right, that is X-Men #1. Here is Tony Stark, first appearance of Iron Man, Tales of Suspense 39. When we left off, this book had a couple months of increases. That was back in January. What happened in February? Pretty big increase. All right, and then March came in, little bit of a downturn, but overall still up since January, 2% increase. Okay, up overall 55% since 2020, and again, right, a similar story to some of the other books, right? The past 5 or 6 months, it's pretty. You can say flat. Depends how long you straighten out the line, right? Overall, I think it's flat over the past 6, 7, 8 months, some ups, some downs, but maybe this book's hit his bottom as well. Who knows, right? We never know what the next month will give us. And here are the individual grades. A lot of sales. 9 grades had sales over the past couple months. And you can see 7 of the 9 had increases, but the 2 that had decreases were fairly significant, especially that 3.5, 27% drop. Otherwise, right, we'd see these numbers be a little bit higher. So overall, Tales of Suspense 39 is doing fairly well. Strong book recently. All right, Fantastic Four #1, Marvel's First Family. When we left off in January, this had a pretty big uptick. What's happened in the past 2 months? Well, casting news with the new movie has been pretty much the talk, right? There's some good casting news, some casting news people don't like as well. But there is definitely excitement. People want, I think overwhelmingly, people want this movie to succeed compared to the 2 that Fox released. Everybody, including myself, wants this movie to be fantastic because there's so many branches, right? If you start at the beginning and you do it right, this franchise can go on for a decade or longer. Something to build around. Okay. So January, we left off, really big increase. Did it continue with all the speculation and all the casting and all the announcements? What happened in February? Little bit down. Then what happened in March? Down a lot more. But you'll see why because of the individual data, right? There wasn't a lot of it. So regardless, it went down about $2,000, average sale price 13% overall. The book is up 29% over 4 years. Not a huge increase compared to some of the other books. And here's what I'm talking about. Only 3 grades had sales over the past couple months. And you can see 2 of the 3, the bigger grades, right? The 4.5 and the 3.0 had pretty big decreases, and the 2.5 only had a small increase. So that's why this data looks the way it does. And again, right, it is what it is. Right? You can't argue the data. But as time goes by and we get more sales or more grades selling in a month, right, it's easier to stabilize the data a little bit. Regardless, these books did not continue to increase even with all the announcements of the movie. So a little bit interesting. I think, like we've said before, those times are gone, right? People don't care as much about movie announcements when they're looking at the prices of comic books anymore. Too many people have been burned, and much more hesitation to spend big money just because of an announcement. I think that's a smart decision. All right. Last but not least, the King of the Silver Age, Amazing Fantasy 15, first appearance of Peter Parker and Spider-Man. When we left off in January, this was still a $34,000 book on average with the grades that we've included here. Couple months of a decrease. Will the trend continue? Let's see. February came in and it went up. Pretty sizable increase. And then March went down. The decrease is a little bit more than the February increase. So overall, we're going to be down by about $300. Only a 1% drop. The book overall still up 47% over the past 4 years. And then a decent amount of sales. 7 different grades. 5 of the 7 grades had decreases. Look at that. But then the 2 increases were fairly significant. The 6.0, even though it's a 14%, only a 14% increase, that's a high-priced book. So 14% means a lot to the average. And then the 2.0, having a 45% increase, this book would have dropped a lot more, the average here on this chart, if it weren't for those 2 sales. All right. So that's it for the 6 books. Here's the summary. When you look at all 6 of them, 3 of them had increases since the last update. 3 of them had decreases. We're used to seeing, 5 or all 6 showing decreases. So showing a little bit more green from month to month. And it's a good thing for the hobby. But I also say the correction is also good for the hobby. And I don't think we're done yet, right? It's just slowing down. We're going to see more things dropping. But if you've been watching the Heritage Auction, and I know it's ending this week, in fact, by the time I post this video, we'll be at least 1 day into the closing of the auction. So probably had some big sales in there, and throughout the whole weekend, right, the Heritage Signature Auction has a ton of these books in them. So we're going to have a lot new data for April when that data point comes out. Okay, and then what's next? Right, so on the left side, here's what we have so far for Silver Age. And then in terms of what I have coming up next, the obvious ones in Silver Age would be Journey into Mystery 83 and Avengers #1, right? Those are the other 2 Marvel Grails that I haven't included, so I'll be doing those next. And then, right, I'll take your suggestions on some other things. Should I throw in some DC in the Silver Age as well? Let me know. And then Bronze Age, right? We have the big 3 that I've been doing updates on every month or at least every other month. But I really want to do one on House of Secrets 92. That'll be my first DC book. And then you've got to add in Marvel Spotlight 5. That is the other big Bronze Age Marvel key. First appearance of Johnny Blaze as Ghost Rider. And then maybe some other DC stuff or other books. I know people suggested Moon Knight or Blade. Let me know what other suggestions you have, whether it's Silver Age, Bronze Age. I'll keep doing the updates of these 6 books for Silver Age and the 3 main books for Bronze Age together. And then when I put out the videos for the new books, right, it's just going to be a video dedicated to that single book because there's a lot of data that we go through those. Looking forward to hearing your suggestions. Your comments are always welcome. And until next time, have a great day.